have those goals, have those visions, but ultimately be surrendered to whatever is. Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
I was just looking at your self-tape and now I'm looking at you.
I've been working on that all day, just trying to get that to you.
It was really lovely. And I love that you gave me 2 takes. And actually, I liked number 2.
You did?
I did.
Okay.
I felt like it was just a little bit more, like you threw it away a little bit more.
Yeah.
So everybody, this is Wade Wilson.
Hello, hello.
And I was just talking about how, because I remember I was thinking back today about how when we met. And I remember sitting down at the table with you on Abbot Kinney in that the green building that I used to be in. And I just was telling them how when you meet someone who, it's just very much like a relationship, that when you meet someone and you just click and you just kind of know, it's the same. It's all relationships are the same. And there's just some kind of magic that you feel, you know?
Yeah, there's like it's an unspoken energy.
Yeah.
And once you make that match, that connection, it's always undeniable.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of actors ask me all the time, and I don't know how to tell them from an actor standpoint. Maybe you can. They just say, how do I know? Like, how do I know that it's the right person? How did you know to choose me over the other people that you met with?
I can't remember exactly what you said, but I remember sitting down with you, and it's similar to like what I wrote in the post. Like, I got from you that you didn't look at the industry for, how everyone typically looks at it. You saw me as a person, and I knew that you were going to work with me as a person, and that all that other fluff it didn't matter. And once I got that from you, it was the same thing that I got from Gina. Gina, when I first met her, it was exactly the same thing, because I had gone through agents and managers, and it was the same rigmarole. I was just a number. It was all about money. What can you do for me? I felt like I was just a cog on a machine. But with Gina, she was the first manager that I met, and I just felt like a person, and working with someone who just wanted the best for me.
Yeah.
So after the whole Spike Lee thing, when she was like, "Oh, I have an agent for you," she hooked me up with you. We sat down, and it was immediately the same energy. And I was like, I recognize this. She's the one.
Yeah.
I'm just a person here. We're just people. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
And how did you get the Spike Lee thing?
By chance, really. That was Gina. She hit me up. They didn't give any details about the video game. It was NBA 2K16. And I just went in, and everything fell into place. And it's funny because that audition, which we'll get into when we get into the questions, it came up during one of the hardest periods of my life.
Really?
Wasn't expecting it. I was in this place where I was borderline, like, even deciding whether I was going to continue acting. I was this close to just being like, forget it.
Really?
And then and it was like right somewhere in there, it happened, and everything just fell into place. And then it was after I booked it, they had sent out like the next day. Like, you have to be willing to fly out to San Francisco the next day.
Wow.
And my life changed from that point on. It was just different.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's, you and I both believe in the universe and, and things that are kismet. So I love that happened. So people are now starting to join, because it's just, I wanted to kind of, everybody.
Build up a little bit.
This is Wade Wilson. He's an amazing actor. He came to me, he had already studied, he had so much training, he had so much depth, and he had this beautiful job that he had just done. So I felt like you came in with like this sense of confidence about you, and I could just tell, oh, you just froze. Are you still there?
Oh, I'm still here.
There you are.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Um, I just felt like there was a really, like you had a really great sense of self and you were so grounded. And I just knew there was something special about you. I just did. And you guys, when I got sick, Wade wrote me like this 3-page letter. And I still have it. I was like, oh, I should dig that out, but I didn't want to embarrass you. But, you know, it just meant so much to me. And I just feel like, you know, sometimes these relationships, they go beyond. You know, if you work with someone for years, you really do get to know them, and it really does become a family, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was agreeing 100%.
I'm going to close this door because my dogs are barking.
Okay.
Guys, shush. I'm like, shush. So I wanted to talk to you. You and I discussed this beforehand, and we decided that we were going to kind of go deep first, and then get into more technical questions after.
Ease off.
But I don't want to just not talk to you about what's going on right now in our industry and in the world, in America, and really how it pertains. However you want to talk about it, how it pertains to you just as a human, but also in our industry. And so I'm just going to kind of start it off with a question, but whatever comes to you is what we're meant to talk to everyone about. It's what they're meant to hear, you know?
We're in flow right now.
What?
We're in flow right now.
We're in the flow.
Yeah.
So I really just want to talk about racism, and I want to talk about racism in our business, and if you've encountered it and your feelings about it, and how you've kind of overcome it. So let's just go and let's just see where we end up.
Okay. Racism in the industry. That's such a multifaceted thing in that of itself.
Do you want me to break it down a little bit?
Well, yeah, I think I have something on that. I would say, and it's a painful thing to say, but as far as like racism in the industry and how I've dealt with it, and I'm sure a lot of people of color feel this way, is I haven't dealt with it. I haven't addressed it. Because for so much of my life, I've been doing this for, professionally, like in Hollywood, I've been doing this for more than 10 years. And I've seen a lot. I've endured a lot from, you know, just the roles that are available all the way down to the casting office itself. But the problem is, especially when you're young and you're starting off, you're intimidated by the powers that be, even when you're on set. So even when you see racism just blatantly unfold in front of you, it's hard to say anything because the first thing that comes to mind is, well, I don't want to cause problems. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to lose this job because I said something or I told on somebody or, you know, something like that. So because of that pressure, I stay silent. And that's just how it's been. I feel now in my 30s as an adult and moving forward, especially after everything that's unfolded. And I'll actually tell a story of an incident that I did encounter, and it still hurts me to this day. But moving forward, I don't think I will be as silent. And I urge other actors of color also not to be as silent. Because you know what, at the end of the day, our rights and us being able to perform without that pressure and that stress and that fear, that's what it should be. And if we're in situations where we have that burden on our back, then that's probably not the best situation for us, and it needs to change. So moving forward, I'll deal with it. But up until this point, I haven't. And I'm sure a lot of people have felt the same way.
You said that you had a particular situation that still kind of haunts you to this day. Could you elaborate?
Elaborate. it was years ago. It was before the Spike Lee incident. Actually, this moment, now that I'm thinking back to it, it's one of the reasons why I was in such a low point before the Spike Lee incident, and it sprung up after another incident. It wasn't to do with racism, but it was a tip that I had with the casting director. So this followed that, and it just kind of put me in a further sink. But I was at an audition, and the waiting room was filled with people, and a black woman with her children come into the room, and we're all sitting there, and there's everyone. There's whites, Asians, Hispanics, Latinx, blacks, all of us. We're all there. This black woman comes in, and she's with her kids, and she's trying to sign in, and the assistant doesn't see her name on the roster anywhere. So she says, the lady says to her, like, I just drove all the way from Vegas. It was like a basketball audition for her son, and he was tall, he looked the part. She was like, I drove all the way from Vegas to get my boy in here. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I signed up on LA Casting. I can prove it to you, the whole nine. So the casting assistant says, like, hold off. Like, let me talk to the casting director. Minutes pass, and the casting director comes out. And pretty much they start getting into it because he doesn't believe her, and he says something like, oh, you're just trying to crash the audition.
Ugh.
And okay, that's all understandable.
Yeah.
But out of nowhere, Stacy, it goes from 0 to 100, and he starts being blatantly racist in front of everyone. He starts calling her slanderous names. He starts belittling her, and we know that belittlement is coming from how he perceives her because of her color, because he's saying things like that. I don't remember what he's saying, but I remember being in the room and looking around, and all of us are just like, does he not see the situation that he's in right now? Like, we're all pretty much people of color, and he's just going off the mouth. And the lady, I guess she wanted to hit him so bad, but she was like trying to restrain herself. She kind of walked off. She started crying. And what killed me is just like what we were saying. And I was like in my mid-20s, early 20s. Oh, no. I think I was 28, 27, 28. Anyways, I'm sitting there wanting so badly to say something, to do something. And I couldn't, because I was like, I need this audition. And guess who I was auditioning for?
Don't tell me.
It was him. It was him.
Oh, it was that guy.
It was that guy. I had to go in that room. And that's what irked me, because he's doing this, and a lot of the people in that room had to go in there. And that's what he gave us. That's what he left us with. So now all of us have to audition for this casting director, and we all know how he thinks about us. He's made that perfectly clear, even though it wasn't directed to us, but it kind of was. And it made me so angry that I didn't do anything. And it made me even more angry that none of us did anything. And after looking at it in hindsight, I realized everyone in that room felt the same way that I did. We didn't want to lose the audition. We put the audition over everything.
Yeah.
And we stayed silent.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read countless accounts of this on Instagram, been hearing about this where people, and it's not that we need to speak up for you. It's like, I think that I'm not going to ask the cast director's name, but was this casting director white?
Yes.
So it's really incumbent upon white people to say something, right? Because there's a shock element that happens, right? And a fear element that happens. And it's also, you know, like you're trying to get a job. So you feel like you can't even say something. But it's really like,
Yeah.
you know, the sad thing is that, you know, I was talking to my husband about this. It's like, if we hear this, it's so important for us to say that's not okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not okay. And you have to, we have to teach people and educate people about this. You know, I've been feeling like it's really important to talk about this, and it's hard for me because I'm white, so I can't relate, except that I'm Jewish. I'm like, you know, I'm next on their list, right?
Right.
You know, so I hesitate to say anything because I know how I'm not, but all I know is that I just have to keep speaking up. I just have to keep saying stuff, you know? And so, I mean, have you seen it? Have you encountered that again to that level, or have you felt a shift in it at all in our industry?
I can honestly say since then, I haven't seen anything to that degree. Um, my auditions after that point have been really good. I haven't had any problems with anybody. Really after that, it's just been the unsatisfactory type of roles that come in.
Yeah.
And some of the scripts that I read where it's, you know, same old story.
Right. Well, and you liked the one that I just sent you because it kind of he was like they were communicating telepathically. And...
Yes, it was open up. Like that, I like when scripts, especially when the story doesn't call for it, but when they just don't focus on sexuality or race or anything, because at the end of the day, those things don't matter. It's the person. We're telling the story about people, and if the story isn't revolved around their sex or their race specifically, then who cares?
Right.
Like, we're not here for that. So when I see scripts like this, where it's just open book, they don't mention anything, it's just get a person in this role and let's see it come to life. That's what I'm talking about. Because all that other stuff, the actor will bring that out. We'll show those things, have some kind of importance with the character if we choose that. So this one in particular really caught my eye because of that. It's like, oh, yes, fine.
And what about Dear White People on set there? Like how does it feel to be part of that family?
Oh, it's great. It's one of those sets that's very how they say woke. Everyone's very like conscious. So it's a very open and loving environment. Like everyone from the crew to the actors to the director. When I walked into the set, immediately a part of the family, and they're very conscious of that. We're all human, so people do make mistakes, and I've seen those mistakes happen, but the conversations are so constructive. There's no real drama on that set, and it's one of the few sets that I've been on in a long time because everything happened so fast, but it didn't matter because the entire time I was so comfortable, so I could just perform.
Let me ask you, I'm curious with everything that's going on, and I know you're very involved with the movement. Are you reading that awoke?
Yeah.
That's Patty. Hi, Patty. Because let's say when I sent you the audition, but you're also preparing to give a speech tomorrow. Is it hard to reconcile continuing to audition or be in the business life when there's this other really important thing kind of happening and a movement happen? Like, how have you reconciled those two things together, or have you always had to? And it's
I've always had to. It's I love acting. It's therapy for me, and that's why I do it. But the social issues, the goalpost is always going to move. There's always going to be something,
Yeah.
And So I've had to come to terms with just being able to balance that. If there is social disorder, then I can't necessarily jump into something knowing that I'm in unrest because it'll be harder to perform.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I do have to take breaks. I always say that none of us are, superhuman, right? If we're in a pool, we can't tread water forever. Eventually you have to get out the pool and take a break.
Yeah.
And that translates into various different ways. So something like that. Um, to be honest, had any auditions really come up during all of the protesting and things like that, I probably would have had to tell you no, because I was in a really distressed place.
Yeah.
And, I've had to take the weeks to kind of like come down and refocus myself. But I'm more comfortable now. And I understand that the war is going to keep going on, but I can't stop living my life. I can't stop doing the things that I love. So yeah, in time, you learn to kind of balance both.
Yeah.
You fight the war, but you still play.
So before we move on, I just want to ask do you have any kind of, if there's, because the people who are watching this are all levels, right?
Yeah.
So do you have any words of inspiration specifically for people of color, specifically?
I would say that society is on different precipices. We're right there, and things are about to fall off the cliff and just free fall. And one of the things is with technology and the ability to create, as we were talking about auditions and me being unsatisfied with a lot of the roles that are coming in, it's because we haven't completely put our voices into the conversation yet. We're not entirely in the equation. And I feel like right now, for people of color, we have to create. We more than ever have to be the writers and the directors and the producers of our stories.
Yes.
It is paramount.
Yes.
And there's nothing stopping us now.
Yes. Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
you cannot wait, and I say this across the board, like, you cannot wait for people to do things for you.
No.
You have to do it yourself. You have to create for yourself. You have to show people who you are. And just waiting for someone to pick you up, that's why I say agents are nothing. Like, you don't need an agent. No. You just go do it,
Do it.
So I really want to know if how you have dealt with rejection over the years, because I know that a lot of actors, especially when they're first starting out, and they go and they're so excited when they go to an audition, and then they don't get it and they're devastated. And you've been doing this for a while, and you win some and you lose some, and you get the parts that are meant for you. And I just wondered if you could tell people how you've dealt with that over the years, and what you do, what works for you.
Okay, so this one is going to be a deep dive. Okay. We might be on this for a little bit. So ready. Remember when earlier in our conversation I told you about the racist incident?
Yes.
But there was a moment before that. So I will never, ever forget this day. It was a commercial audition that Gina had sent me out on. I don't think I ever told Gina this too. So Gina, if you're watching, now you know. I went into this audition. It was for, I won't mention the company.
Okay.
But it was a commercial audition. And I go in and I do the part. And the casting director is like looking at me, and they're not dismissing me. They're not saying anything. I'm just standing there just kind of like, what's going on? And the first words that come out of their mouth is, they asked me the question. They were like, what made you think you could do this? Or something like that.
What?
I was like, huh? Come again? And they were just like, you're not good. You're just not good. And I want you to know that I think you should just stop and try something else, because this, I don't know what this was, but it wasn't good.
What?
Sorry. Yeah. Straight to my face. And I'm backpedaling hard. Like, this is just a commercial audition. I just came in here to pick up a bleeping prop. Where's this coming from? And I think I said something in a retort, because I kind of blacked out, and I remember just walking out of the casting office, and I don't even think I was dismissed. I just was like, and just left. And they came out of the casting office, and they were on like some egotistical high, and they were like, excuse me, excuse me. They literally stopped me in front of everyone. Everyone is in the, and they stopped me, and they're like, I didn't dismiss you. See, that's what I'm talking about. That right there, that's not going to get you anywhere. Yeah. And that just kind of went on until I just left. I was like, I'm about to go off on somebody, and I just left. And I remember I was like walking down the street, and there was a Trader Joe's. This is where it gets like really magical and all that stuff. But this was the first moment where I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I in this business? Why am I putting up with that? And I get nothing for it. I come in, I try to do my art, I try to put my heart into it, and all I do is get doors slammed in my face, time in, time. Like, why is this even worth it? And I had to calm down, took deep breaths. I walked around the block like 3-4 times, and I decided that I was going to go into the Trader Joe's that was across the street. And I was like, you know what? Because I'm a wine drinker. I was like, I'm going to get some wine, and I'm going to hold on to it until the right moment to celebrate. Ah. So I went in, I looked for some wine. I'm going on a little tangent here, but trust me, it's worth it. Okay. And I ended up getting Francis Ford Coppola. I got his wine. Yeah. And so I brought it home, didn't look at it again. Not too long after, the racist incident happened. Wow. And that took me to a whole new low. And I was like, oh my God, why am I in this business? This business is terrible. Why am I putting up with this? This is so stupid. And then the Spike Lee audition happened. I booked it. And then we flew out to Napa Valley. And then the whole experience is great. Spike Lee was great. And I kid you not, this is what knocked my block off. At some point, Spike Lee took all of us to a vineyard. Oh no! And yep, we were all drinking wine, and we're sitting down at this table. And then he tells us that it's Francis Ford Coppola's vineyard. And then Francis Ford Coppola walks into the building, and we sit down and have dinner with the man. No! And I'm sitting at the table, literally in tears, and I'm like, okay. I can't dispute this. I can't fight this. Yeah. So that was one of the things that kind of brought me back, and I had to kind of reassess my feelings on rejection. Now, let's continue, because that was a high point. So now, NBA 2K16, the first project with Spike Lee, is done. Yeah. Then I come back and I start directing my own play called Inside the Mind of Me, which I'm going to be doing again soon, eventually. And then I get another call from Spike Lee, and he says, hey, I want you to be in Chirac. So I have to get another director to direct my play, and then at the same time, we fly out to Chicago to do Chirac. That whole experience is amazing. And then the experience is over. So this is a different kind of rejection that I feel.
Yes.
And this is before I meet you. And this is, to me, is critical, because this, to me, is worse than the rejections that you feel when you audition. Because with auditions, you don't have anything, right? You just go in, you're punching your lottery ticket, and if your number gets called, awesome. But if it doesn't, you just have to move on.
Right.
So I had a lot of experiences on Chirac that I will say kind of blew my head up. There were a lot of things that I was hearing, a lot of things that some of the celebrity actors were saying that just, it kind of bigged me up. Even my fellow castmates. I was riding a high. So I didn't think that after Chirac that I was going to be some, big celebrity or something like that. I didn't think of stardom, but I definitely thought like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah.
This is the launching pad. Like, it's going to be a steady climb. It was not a steady climb. And because in that time, like I got with you because I was like, hey, this is it. I need an agent moving forward, paired with my manager, because I got to be ready. And what I was met with, y'all, was the opposite. It was like that train came to a screeching halt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took me, Dear White People was the first big theatrical thing that I had booked in 3 years after that. I had Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
I did Criminal Minds, but that was like a little day spot,
right.
which was, it was revigorating. But in my mind, because of where I was at, I was belittling myself.
Right.
I'm like, I just did this, but what? And I couldn't even appreciate that Criminal Minds spot because I was just belittling myself so hard. I was like, I should not be here. Like, what is going on? Like, it took so much humbling. And I do believe now, looking back in hindsight, that 3-year period happened because I needed to be humbled. I needed to have my soul cleared because I wasn't in a good place coming off of Chirac. I was in this very egotistical place. I had certain expectations of myself and what I wanted and what I expected to see. And when I didn't get any of that, when that didn't happen, everything fell apart. My entire being, my talent, everything fell apart. I was doing a play at the time. It was with the theater company Theater Unleashed, and we were doing a Die Hard Christmas. It was a Christmas musical, and they made me John McClane. And that play was fantastic. But even during that time, I'm still doing what I love to do, but because of where my head was at, I again couldn't appreciate the then and now.
Yeah. And that's the most important thing. It is the most important thing because all we have is today, right?
Yes.
And I do see what you're talking about a lot in this business where people there's a lot of talk in this business, right? And I learned that pretty early on. And so I don't believe anything until there is a contract in front of me, right? So
I'm going to get to this question. I'm going to answer that.
Yeah, answer that. Do you want to answer?
Oh, right now?
How do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So how do I cope with that? It was a process. I would say now I wouldn't be so much affected by it because the coping mechanism that occurred is I realized that the things that I wanted were not the important things. I wanted more money now. I wanted I wanted better parts now. I wanted everything now. And what I had to realize is that that's not why I'm in this business. I'm not in the business necessarily because I want the fame, the accolades, and the stardom and all of that stuff. I'm in this business because I love to act. I love to take these characters and, um, bring them to life. I like bringing myself to life. I like the therapy, the process, all of that stuff. And I really had to come to terms with asking myself that, why are you doing this? And when I figured out the real reason why I'm in this and that nothing else mattered, that's what helped me cope with it. Because the where my mind was just, it was the wrong place. My heart was in the wrong place. And once it was in the right place, like Dear White People was great experience. And there was no guarantee that I was going to be in season 4. And had that not carried over, I can honestly tell you I would have been okay, because I'm just enjoying the journey at this point.
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying the process.
Yeah.
I don't need, if all that other stuff comes, then, oh, that's a blessing. Thank you. Like, I am so grateful, but I don't need it. It doesn't matter.
And that energy is what people want to work with too.
Yeah.
Not the energy of this business owes me, or now I've made it. So there's an ego that comes with that, right?
Yeah.
And I can usually smell that in someone. And I think that even if you're not talking about it when you walk in the room, people do feel that when you walk into the room as well, and you might not believe me, but when there's magic and things are happening and you're centered and grounded and you know who you are, that's when the auditions start popping too. So that's just people picking the picture. I'm submitting all the time, but all of a sudden your picture just starts to glow, right? And casting directors are just like, yes, him, right? But I do find that it's something, I'm glad you talked about this, because it's something that happens when somebody books something, and let's say it's not a series lead, right? Because the series lead, that does take off. But then every actor has to then start again, because that job is over. So until you're at the place where, like, you get to a place where you get to choose the projects you want to do, which is ultimately where we want you to get to, or creating your own content. You're just now getting to the next audition. I mean, I know you know this. When you go on auditions, there's people you see in the waiting room, and they had TV shows.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, they're auditioning? So I get actors who they're like, oh, that's easy. And I know I can do that, but they just want to be a star.
Yeah.
And what really matters, and what I know you have, is that you have this soulful connection with what you do, and you just are an actor, right? You're going to act the rest of your life. So
all my life,
the business is just this other thing, right? It doesn't waver this connection that you have to your artistic soul.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of people going into this business, you have to understand that. You have to ask yourself honestly, look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself honestly, why are you doing this? Because I can tell you, if you're in it for the accolades and you're in a position where you're just not fortunate, and you've been in this for 10, 15 plus years, and things are just not panning out for you, you're going to be in a really dark place. Yeah. And you're going to be asking yourself that same question. Is this worth it? Right? Because you're striving on something that is just not guaranteed. It's not promised.
Right. So you
have to let go of it.
Yeah. And you have to make other things fulfilling in your life.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
You can't just have this one thing define who you are as a person inside.
Right. Like, I understand, like, I love to act, and I am an actor, but I'm not just an actor. And I was caught in that trap. Actually, you were one of the people that helped me break away from that, because remember, before my trip to Europe, I was questioning on going because of auditions that were popping up. And you told me, you said, Wade, live your life.
Yeah.
Forget the auditions, explore Europe, have the time of your life, live your life. And I did that, and it was one of the best things you could have ever told.
Because you came back a different person. You
A
learned about
different,
yourself,
oh,
which is then
I,
going to
I,
layer your work,
yes.
you know? Okay, so let's get to some questions that can help some people here. So can you talk about training and maybe some of your most inspirational teachers that you've had, like any kind of pivotal moments in your training and how it impacted you?
Here we go. Buckle up. I'm going on a
I'm
ride.
ready, I'm ready.
um, I look at acting like the martial arts. You know, there's different methods, but just like with wisdom, the more you know, the better off you'll be. In martial arts, the more different types of fighting you know, the better type of fighter you will be, the more prepared you are for the given situation. And there are just so many veterans out there that have so much wisdom. Like, even if you're not getting anything from the class itself per se, at least be listening to the teacher,
Yeah.
because they're telling you their experience. They're telling you things that they've gone through, and every nugget is precious. So training is paramount, for that reason. I The first teacher that I had was Susan Worthing. It was in uh, a theater company in the Bay Area, Young Actors Workshop. And she was the first person to teach me how to be myself, because I was this young kid who grew up in Richmond, California, which is not the best neighborhood. I was this light-skinned kid. I was very confused, and she just taught me how to like open up and just be me and not care and not think about my race and who I am and all that stuff. And it was the first time that I could just go out and I just had so much fun. That's where I really fell in love with acting, being on that stage. And then when I went to college, when I moved down here right after high school, my professor, Tanya Kane Perry, she was another pivotal moment because she kind of broke down my masculinity, the armor that I was wearing, and she broke it down in a constructive way. So I used to wear like really baggy clothes because I was very self-conscious about my size. I'm a very slender guy, always have been, and I would wear like bigger clothes because I wanted to come off as like this bigger masculine dude, and I would kind of carry myself a certain way. And I remember one of our classes, she saw that, and she said, "You know, you're so talented, but the armor that you wear is so clear." And I was doing a scene from Death of a Salesman, and it was the scene where he's begging for his job back.
Yeah.
And she was like, I want to see your vulnerability, but I won't be able to see it as long as you have this armor on. So I kid you not, she told me, she said, if you're comfortable, I want you to take off your pants and your shirt.
Wow.
And then do the scene.
Wow.
And I stayed there. And I had to, all the eyes appearing on me, and I had to really think about it. But see, I've always been in love with the process. That's how I was trained. So I braved it, took my shirt off, took my pants off. I was just in my skivvies. And I did the scene. And I remember just falling apart. My strings just came undone. And she said, that right there, that what you're feeling, that's what you bring to it every single time.
Yeah.
So it's always a process, because you always come into something and you have that armor, but you have to find a way to take it off. You gotta be able to bear it all. And she taught me that. And then most recently, the third professor that I've had that has been blowing my mind is Alan Miller at the Actors Workshop. I've been very fortunate. This is my second year at the Actor Studio as a finalist. So I've had to work with him for an extended period of time. Um, and this man is just, he's incredible. He does workshops with SAG-AFTRA. So if you see him doing any classes, Alan Miller with SAG-AFTRA, I beg of you to take a class with him. He's phenomenal. But he's been teaching me how to channel my energy because I love this so much. So what was happening to me is before auditions, I would get so much adrenaline and so excited that I would kind of go into some of the auditions and my energy is just kind of all over the place. So he was teaching me how to channel that energy. He was like, that energy that you feel, you want to contain it and you use it directly. You channel it in your points, but it's all very decisive because I was just moving willy-nilly. He was just, no, contain yourself because then it's gonna build up and it's gonna shoot off like a gun whenever you want it to. You let it surge out in your emotions. You let it surge out in like just a squint, but you use that emotion and it reads, it translates. So he's changed my life in that regard. Just being able to hone in and channel. Oh, he's amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that's so important because a lot of new actors, when they're first starting out, everything is so big. They make everything so big. Maybe they've come from college where they were doing theater and they don't understand how to translate that into TV and film. And, you can communicate with someone on film just by thinking. You don't actually have to do anything or say anything. You can just think it and your eyes will show it all. And, that's why I liked the second take of what you sent me today, because there was a strength in both of them. But that second one, it was just, I don't know. I just felt like it was inside you. Does that make sense?
I let go in that one.
Yeah.
The last two takes were the best because I'd finally gotten to a place where I wasn't thinking about the lines.
Right.
But that second one was more, I when we did it, because that was one of the safeties, I said, I'm just gonna whatever. Like whatever it is, it is.
And
that's the
I
one we like.
recommend that to everyone. If you're doing a self-tape and after you get one that you like, I always recommend do another one and just throw it away. Just for fun, because that one is going to have this life in it. I wanted to ask you how you like to prepare for a role and what is your process when you get to set?
For me, like I was just talking about, the energy aspect, I get really adrenaline filled when I get a role, especially one that I like. So for me, it's all about relaxation. Relax, relax, relax. Because you cannot perform when you're tense, when you're scared, when you feel any kind of pressure. So when I'm preparing, I do whatever is necessary to just relax. I will go get massages, spa days. If I want to just sleep in all day, I will do that if I feel the need to. Meditate, however meditation is for you. But relaxation is so important. It is for me, it is the most important. So I just relax.
And you're trusting that you've already done the work with the lines and you've broken down the character and all of that.
Because that's the thing, right? Is if I'm still in this place where I'm worried so much about that, there's still a stress there. And it's all about finding balance. Because the thing is, a little bit of stress is good. So no matter what you're doing, that's never get rid of it.
Oh, you're breaking up for me.
Oh.
I don't know if anybody else is. You're breaking up for me. Oh, there you are. There you are. There you are.
Okay, I'm still there. So, stress is a part of life. It's always going to be there. So for me, I've learned that I have to relax myself as much as possible, because then when those little mediations of stress come in, I can better deal with it because I'm in a relaxed state. I can consciously take it in, process it, and then do whatever I need with it. And the stress doesn't build and become this uncontrollable thing. I had that happen to me actually most recently. I did a play back in September um, by writer Strong. And I will say that that whole process, I I was having like imposter syndrome because I went in and I had this callback, and the callback was amazing. That callback, honestly, was probably one of the best performances I've done to this date.
Ah,
And I knew that. I knew that. And I knew that everyone in the room knew that. And I walked away and I knew that I booked it and I got the call the same night. It was that good. But see, I didn't mediate or channel or process the stress of now the weight that I put on my shoulders, which was I have to live up to that performance. I didn't do any work. The audition started and I just went in, and then I saw all these other amazing actors, and I immediately started comparing myself to those actors.
yeah, I can't.
And then, I didn't do any work with that. I didn't relax myself. I just kept going, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And the entire rehearsal process, I could not work. I was struggling to create. I was struggling to focus. Like, it was the worst case scenario. And I felt like the only reason why I was kept on the project is because the director and the producer and the writer and everyone, they knew what I was capable of. And the director let me know. He was like, I know you're going through something right now, and I trust you'll get through it. But, just work on it. And so leading up to the performance, I had to then work on my personal relaxation techniques, and eventually I got through it. And when we started running, I picked up pace and started gunning it out the park. But I had a hard time of it because I didn't relax that entire time. I just allowed myself to freak out and stress, and I wasn't doing, even behind the scenes, when we were off, I didn't do anything to relax. It was work, rehearsal, and you know so relaxation is key.
It's good that you're bringing that up because it's not just, breaking down the character. It's not just learning your lines. It's not just going to class. There is this whole emotional element because there is this heightened reality when you book a job, or it's a heightened, I've heard that when you go, it's not heard, they measured actors adrenaline levels when they go to auditions, and it's like having a mini car accident. That's how high your adrenaline goes. So
it does.
Really, whatever you have to do to ground yourself and be in, it also has to do with just believing in who you are as a human, and that audition or that play or whatever doesn't define you as a human as well.
Yes. And that's a part of the
That
relaxation.
relax.
That's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So can you tell us how you got into acting in the first place?
Yes. Very quick story. It was my elementary school teacher. I was 9 years old, and we were doing a play about the presidents, and none of the presidents were black yet, and she really wanted me to be in it. So instead of playing Lincoln, she made me play this character. She wrote it in. It was called Amos the Mouse, and I was the mouse that lived in Lincoln's log cabin. And so my whole part was just talking about Lincoln as the mouse. And I just remember having so much fun. And I remember standing up on that stage, and when we did the bow and the audience and everything. And I remember as early as that, I was like, this is it. Hands down, I want to do this. And
did it spiral from there? Like, did you start when you were that young?
yeah, my teacher, the Young Actors Workshop, the theater company, Miss Jones, my teacher, she's the one who got me into that. She went to my parents and was like, oh my goodness, you got to do it. And my parents were like, all right, and they got me in, and the rest is history.
Wow. And so you just knew from, how old were you when you did that first play?
I was like 9 or 10.
9 or 10.
And I never looked back. Never looked back. Like what I've done to this point in my life, I can honestly say, you guys, like I could die happy. Like I've arrived to this place where if I didn't book anything else for the rest of my life, I'm honestly happy. Because I think now back to that 9-year-old boy, I never thought in a million years the kid from Richmond doing any of the things that I've done up until this point. It's so beyond me, but I've done it. I've technically, no, not even technically, I have accomplished my dream. Anything else beyond this point for me is just a cherry on top. I've done it, and I acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think that that's why you connected with me so much when I was sick. I got that same message when I got sick. And now I feel the same way. I could die tomorrow and I would be happy. And I think that that's a really important lesson to get in life,
Yeah.
So this kind of goes along with that. Is there something that keeps you inspired to keep doing this work?
Yeah, what you told me, live my life. Like seriously, that's it. Whatever living your life outside of this industry is, stay with it. It will not steer you wrong. If this industry is not answering your call, then focus on you. Guys, focus on you. Fall full on into it. Perfect example, Dear White People. We were on that period. And, I was to this place where it's like, I'll wait till you catch me. You got me? Okay. Yeah. Even before Dear White People, we were in this lull. And I was like, okay, well, that's not happening. So what is it I can do? I had just finished the play, and I decided that I was going to go full on into doing my poetry book, because I had put that on the back burner for a while. And I was like, all right, I'm going to publish it in the next 2 years. It's going to happen. So I went headfirst in that. And somewhere in there, that's when you guys hit me with Dear White People. And at the time, I'm like, all right, what? I wasn't even thinking about it. When I went into the audition, it was one of those, I don't care. It's just another audition. And boom, it happened. And I was like, oh, there we are.
But do you get it? That's why it happened, because you were concentrating on you, on your heart, and on your craft. And that's when the universe rushes in.
It answers.
It answers. The universe answers you when you are doing what your soul is telling you to do. Artistry comes out in so many different ways.
So many ways. Oh, yeah.
And that's when the universe gave you Dear White People.
Yep.
So that's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it leaves me speechless every time. I think almost every booking that I've had, it's been surreal in some way. It seems like everything happens as it should, when it should, and that's why I let go. I think the most important part in all of this is, and I'm sure you've identify with this with everything that you've been through, is we have to surrender. You have to surrender to the universe.
Yeah.
I have learned that outside of the performance that I bring to that audition table or anything else that I do in life, there are an innumerable amount of things that I do not control, and it is controlled by the universe. It is up to the universe, but it's not personal. None of it's personal. None of it is against you. It's just everything is unfolding as it will. So I stopped thinking about, what will be and what I want it to be. It's okay to think, your dreams and have an idea, but don't be cemented to it. Don't make it like it has to be this way, and if it's not this way, then rah. It's dream, have those goals, have those visions, but ultimately be surrendered to whatever is. Right. Because ultimately that's all you can do. And I've learned to do that.
it's like the trip that you took.
Yes.
Every day should be like that trip that you took.
Yes.
Right? We just wake up and we go for the adventure of what that day is, you know?
Yes.
And keeping the amazement that we're even on the freaking planet and alive.
Yes.
You know?
And not forgetting that. And, you know, in surrendering and other experiences that I've had, I think it's elevated me as an actor, because now I realize how important life is and living that life, which means, and this is a paradox, but I think it's a beautiful paradox, because we look at like, we tend to like want to run away from like bad emotions and bad feelings and, you know, that word bad. And I think there's a misconception with bad. Bad feelings are not bad. They're your feelings. They are things that we feel. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. You should be proud. And when you're going through something, it's like, sure, you may be having a bad day, but you know what? You're having a bad day.
Right.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you could just not have it at all.
Right.
You know, but we're here. Like you said, we're here. And that's everything.
And knowing that it's not always going to be that way, that everything is always changing.
Yes.
Just like what's happening now, what we're witnessing on the planet, what we're witnessing in America, like everything is changing always. Life is like a river and we're flowing, right?
And we're flowing through it.
We're flowing. And even if we're coming up against a rock, eventually water wins, right?
Yep.
The flow wins.
Wins.
Always. So the
Always.
flow will eat that rock away. And pretty soon, it might take years, but there's going to be a divot in that rock and the water is going to rush faster, right?
Oh, that's a beaut. I love that. I love everything you just said right now.
So here's what I want, because everybody came back on and you're so beautiful and wonderful. And I just love you so much. And I just like, if you were going to leave people with words of inspiration, any words of wisdom you wanted to give people who are on their journey of acting right now, what would that be?
Okay, so I'll give you a practical one and I will give you a whimsical one.
Okay.
The practical one will be something that Leslie Kahn told me.
Okay.
And this is for the actors out there who are doing what I did at the very beginning and tried being a starving actor. Don't do it. If you're starting off, try not to be a starving actor. It is fun, but it overstays its welcome. And Leslie Kahn told me to get a job. She was like, just do it. And the reason why she told me, which is very true, is it really changes how you walk into the room and it changes how you present yourself. Whether it's in the audition room or even in your own personal life. People, like we've been talking about this whole time, energy shines through above anything else. And people can read desperation.
Yes.
They can read it.
Yes.
And you do not want to be a desperate person. Now, I understand that jobs are not necessarily always welcoming to what we do, and they're not always flexible with what we do. But I would say that if you're serious about the business, like I said, I've been doing this over 10 years. And, you know, I find jobs that work for me because I choose me first. I choose me above everything. If the job isn't trying to work with me, then I try and find something else. But like, you know, you got to manipulate the system. Like for a long time, what I was doing is I would kind of take a break and I would work at a place and I would build up my vacation hours. So like about after like a year, I may have like over 100 hours, 50 hours or something like that. And then whenever, you know, I would let my boss know like, hey, I do this and I audition a lot. And they'd be like, okay. And I was like, it comes up, you know, every so often, but I got a lot of hours. Are you cool with me taking like last minute vacations and just making up the day? And they were like, yeah. So I had vacation hours. And whenever an audition would come up, I would take the day off and then just make that day up later on. but I would have this conversation with my bosses. So you just got to be, you just got to problem solve it. You know, you got to be, I can't think of the word.
Well, somebody just said smart. It's
Yeah.
smart. You
Yeah.
have to be you have to be smart in this business, you know, and you
Yes.
have to understand that, you know, you don't want to being a starving actor sounds romantic, but it's just like what we said before in the very beginning. We're kind of circling back. It's very much
Yeah.
like a relationship, right? If you go out on a date and someone is so desperate to date you, you're not going to want them.
Yeah.
You know, so you just everything, it's like it's just sitting back, sitting in the pocket, making sure you're okay. Right?
Yes.
Making sure you can pay your rent, making
Yes.
sure you can get headshots, making sure you have a roof over your head. And then you walk into the room. That's when you're ready to
Yes.
walk into the room. And that's when you're ready to sit down at a first date and talk to someone, because you don't need them, right?
Yep.
So I love that. What was the second thing you were going to say?
Well, I just thought of another practical one,
Okay,
and I also
good.
think this is important because I want to dispel this. People, don't worry about age, especially for women and guys alike. Do not worry about age. This is an ageless business. If you, again, if your heart is in the right place of why you're doing this, there is always going to be parts available to you at every stage of your life, right? So as long as you're not trying to be the teeny bop celebrity person who, you know, you got to be famous before you're 18 or by you're 18 or whatever, don't worry about getting older. You're always going to be able to work. Some of the best roles are available for people when they're in their late 30s, 40s, and so forth. So if you're getting older and things aren't working for you and you're like, oh, you know, time is taking, throw that out the window. Relax. Keep going. Something is bound to happen, and even if it doesn't, who cares? At least you got to live this life. At least you got to do what you love to do and pursue it. And that is the most important thing. So that's my last practical thing.
I love it.
Yes. And so for the whimsical, I just want you guys to know that you are enough. Tell yourself every day that you are enough, that you come first, that your life is more important than this business. This business gives to you. You do not give to the business. They are blessed and honored to have you. It's not the other way around. You are enough. You are that important. Live your life. You don't want to miss out on that. You don't.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You were just channeling. Somebody just said, is he single? Seriously, you just channeled some serious mojo right there. That was so beautiful. Wade. Oh my God.
Stacy!
I don't even know, like, we have to end there because I'm going to have to quote you. I'm going to have to like write that up, what you just said. It was sincerely, like, this was a beautiful, beautiful hour that you just shared with all of us. And I cannot thank you enough. Like, I just feel
It is my honor. Trust me. I am so honored that you asked me to do this. And God, I love you so much. I really do.
I love you so much. It's like a total love fest. You guys, thank you so much for coming. And if you have any questions for Wade, just send them in and I can forward them to him, or you can follow him. And I'm going to save both of these so that you can watch it, because if you just tuning in now, you have to watch what Wade just said. I mean, it's going to blow your mind. Like, if you need inspiration, you just dial this back and you just play it on repeat. I love you, man.
I love you too. And to everyone watching, seriously, follow me, drop a dime, a message. Like, I'm at this point in my life, I love helping other actors. I love helping grounding other actors, because I've been through the valley of the shadow of death. And if I can help anyone kind of, you know, curve that or diminish the impact, then I'm so down. I'm in service to you.
Oh, you just gave me chills again.
Oh.
Okay. I love you. I will talk to you very soon.
Yes.
Have a blessed day.
Mwah.
We did that at the same time.
Flow, baby.
Flow. I love you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.